Olá, pessoal! Vamos começar mais um episódio de Thinking IP Outside of the Box. Eu sou Antonella Carminatti, advogada, sócia do BMA, Propriedade Intelectual, e hoje nós temos a honra de estar aqui com Donald Broadfield, que é Chief Intellectual Property Office da American Airlines e acabou de conseguir uma proeza. Ele foi o mentor e o criador de uma ideia fantástica, onde a American Airlines ofereceu as suas marcas em contrapartida a um empréstimo de um valor imenso, mais de $1 bilhão, do Goldman Sachs. Vamos lá. So in 2020, you were the creator of this whole thing, which is American Airlines pledged its brand and in return reached a deal with the merchant banking division of Goldman Sachs for 1 billion in senior notes, secured by a first lien on the American Airlines trademark and on AA.com domain name. So tell us about that. I mean, how did you come with this idea? And, it's so creative. I think it's, really proves the importance of securing your trademark, to securing your brand. And I know you have been doing super work all over the years in that regard. Tell us a little bit about it.
I came to the company in 2004, and when I came to the company, its trademarks were neglected. At that time, there was a real risk that Advantage, the trademark, the one represented as its loyalty program, was at risk of cancellation. And so it became an effort to try to not only shore it up, but to strengthen it. And so that was the effort over that time. Using the trademarks as collateral for a loan, what happened in 2020 wasn't the first time we did that. The first time we did it was in 2009 when we needed to take a loan when it looked like we might be going into bankruptcy. And we did that with the Advantage marks and Advantage miles, getting, I believe it was a $2 billion loan at that time for that, based on that collateral. And with the merger, that loan was paid off. And so when we approached 2020, it was a unique situation with the pandemic, in that typically when we seek a loan, we tend to use other property, the value of our aircrafts, the slots we have, gates, and such. But the thing is, with the pandemic and with the way that the airline market had, collapsed, no one knew what the true value was going to be of those items coming out of the pandemic. And so they were looking for something a little more solid for that. And that's where my suggestion to them was, why don't we use the trademarks for that? So the first thing we did was the CARES Act loan through the Trump administration, and worked on it, providing the Advantage marks with that. What we had left over were the American Airlines and the domain names and everything. And that's what we put toward the $1.2 billion loan. And then after that, we did a bond for $10 billion and used part of that to pay off the CARES Act loan, so that we could free up those assets to be able to collateralize them.
Yeah, I think first of all, congratulations. This is just show us how IP is important. How to secure your brand is important. I don't know if your background, if you were in an IP lawyers from the beginning.
No, I came to the company as an antitrust lawyer from Morgan, Lewis and Bockius in DC.
Yeah, that's true. I remember that now. Yeah, but I think the idea is fantastic. And when you think that in most companies nowadays, I mean, the brands are much more value than anything else. When you talk about the luxury goods companies, for instance, that we were talking before, it's amazing. And I mean, they can survive by themselves. And even if you look to a company like Google, whatever, in that regard, I still have doubt. But when you talk, I mean, you had a very difficult situation in front of you, because American Airlines, it's a service company, and American Airlines is a trademark, is a brand difficult to protect, don't you think?
I believe there are challenges. Yes.
Yeah.
I believe also that both Advantage and American Airlines and such are very strong marks, dating back. I mean, American Airlines dates back to 1928. Has a lot of history, fame, and such. But there are challenges to it, particularly when dealing with foreign IP offices, trademark offices, where they tend to automatically have the gut reaction that is geographically descriptive. So it does take a tremendous amount of effort to try to get past that.
Mhm.
But I've got great local counsel, and so that's a big part of it, was building that up.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And so it was not the trademark registrations that you had in the US, was, I mean, your whole portfolio in every country?
Yes, yes. I mean, for what we collateralized, yes,
Yes, exactly.
yes.
Interesting. So, I mean, you have been working to protect and to make sure that all that your brands were appropriately protected in all these countries, right?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, well, that's always been the effort all along, was when I first took over. It was a very limited portfolio outside the United States, and so it became a big effort in trying to get that. I mean, we're an international airline, and so we have a presence in many countries, and yet we didn't have the protections for the marks when I first got here, of those marks in those countries, and so we needed to expand that rapidly. So that was the effort to do it. And then it became expansion of the goods and services and trying to keep pace with what the business is doing, because the business is always evolving. And so trying to get ahead of them with getting the protections that we need throughout the world.
Hmm. And I mean, what were the challenges?
Well, the challenges were twofold. One, it is educating the business on the importance of this.
Yeah.
From my own experience, and I think it may be at other companies that are that don't rest on brand, like clothing and others, where they focus more on the goods and services they're providing, and so they don't have an appreciation for the value of the soft property. So it becomes an education there of its value and how they ought to be using it and such. I developed the first brand guidelines here for the company, for example, and so applying that and then teaching it. The other side of it is also then with my counsel, because a trademark is defined by the goods and services it represents. And so the airline industry is a very complex, industry. And so it becomes also teaching my counsel about our goods and services, and continually working with them to make them understand that. And there are real challenges in that, because most of what we provide is a service. It's easy to look at a trademark and go, okay, I'm trying to get a cracker or a cookie or chips or something like that through. That's a concept that's easy to understand. When you try to define a loyalty program and what that means, that becomes a more difficult one. And so there needs to be a lot of interaction, a lot of education, a lot of opportunity for counsel and for the business to ask questions, and just finding the time to be able to do that.
Yeah. So when you came with the idea and then you discussed that with Goldman Sachs, do you think that they did understood, or it was difficult to convince them to?
No, Goldman Sachs and their counsel understood it very quickly,
Yeah.
and so it was, they took a deep dive into what there was there, and so no, it was immediate appreciation for what they had in front of them.
Yeah, very interesting. And then you had, I mean, as you said, and the trademark is registered all over the world, and I mean, in different countries. And I know that you were still seeking, for instance, to record. And sometimes it's difficult for the local trademark offices to understand that. And some of them take longer time to register. This was also a challenge.
Yes, it was, because mainly my own view is trademark offices tend to be locked a decade before reality. In other words, they're still trying to come up to speed at a quicker pace and trying to understand it. It was frustrating at times when I tried to explain, like, for example, ramp services, and I get pushback, saying, that isn't a valid, service. Like, we've been doing it for 70 years. Yeah, it's a valid service. So it's that kind of thing of education. So like I said, about educating outside counsel of what we do and what it means, and providing the opportunity to do that, which meant a lot of in-person meetings with our counsel throughout the world, because they're the ones that are the spear point for talking to the trademark offices. They're the ones that have to convince and help the trademark office understand. And so in doing that, to advance our services, to advance what we do, it requires a lot of patience and a lot of investment of time.
Yeah. And, is this in Brazil? It's not something that we see every day. I don't even know. I don't know if there is any, I know of any company that has done that. So in the US, it's something normal, like it's a routine operation.
No, I would not say that it's routine or normal in the U.S. The U.S. trademark office permits more granularity in the recitations, but it still takes a lot of getting them to understand what we're doing. I would say that in the U.S. there's more opportunity for conversations, and so it's a bit easier to try to educate examiners or their managers of what we're seeing. It becomes more difficult when you are dealing with a location that is wedded to the NIS classification. And so what that does is it becomes so rigid that it doesn't provide the opportunity for education of how services and everything are evolving.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because most companies and most trademark offices and legal bodies, they tend to understand NIS classification. I know the class of products and services, for people that do not understand that, as just a guideline, and not exactly. I mean, you don't have to use that as it can be used as a parameter, but not exactly every word that is written there really reflects the service or the product that you are developing. And the NIS classification, although they have a lot of reviews, still, you create products, technologies, and services every day that are not foreseen, are not listed in this classification. So I understand.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah. And how long it took from the moment that actually you had already a great portfolio to offer, because you have been building that over the years. But, what would be your advice for a company that does neglect protection on trademarks?
My advice would be to take a deep dive into how they brand. Not everything needs to be branded that a company provides, and so it becomes an evaluation of what is important there. What are the core services and the core products, and then taking the time to, if it's got a long history, then build that brand. If it doesn't have a long history, maybe even taking a step back and rebranding to give strength to what's there. In the case of coming into American Airlines, much of what was there I inherited and had been there for several decades. So I wasn't going to ask them to rebrand. It was trying to make it stronger. But as they developed new products, it became educating them on how to brand that, and just giving it a name is not the first step. It becomes how you market it and everything else to give it its goodwill. They're tied, hand in hand of what you want to do. The second thing I'd probably tell them is that in identifying the key brands that are there, it becomes educating the company on how to properly use them. Misuse internally is more devastating to a mark than how third parties are using your mark. If you're not respecting it internally, it definitely harms it. So that's the first step, is just educating the company, taking a look at it, taking a look how it's being used, and doing that. The third one I do is then take a close look at how customers refer to it. Like you could take the example of Federal Express. Is it always Federal Express? No, customers start referring to it as FedEx. And that kind of gives you an indication of where you need to be rebranding or strengthening to take advantage of what the vernacular has done to your brand, how it's advanced. So those are the things I would tell a company to take a look at.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting. Actually, marketing plays a strong role. And what I see sometimes is that the marketing department of a company or the marketing agency that the company worked with do never have a very good approach, and they do not take a look on IP properly. Sometimes they don't even know IP. And I think it's very important. Do you have this connection between your marketing department in American Airlines and you?
Yes, I would say I have a very close connection with the marketing department. I work with them frequently and have an open door to them to meet with me regularly to ask questions. I invite them to ask questions. It's the best way they learn. I would say that the marketing department that we have in American right now is probably the best I've ever seen at this company, and the most engaged, and that has just made my job easier for what it is. There have been challenges over the years where marketing, depending upon who leadership is, ebbs and flows, where it does become more of a struggle of trying to work with them. And then with the challenges that are there's a tremendous amount of turnover in this company. And so it's constant work to re-educate with everyone that's there. So, but marketing ends up being the best place to learn about where the company's going, so I can get an idea of where I need to be going with my protections. So it's key to keep a close relationship with them.
Yeah. So would you say like business, marketing, and IP have to play together?
I would go even beyond that. It's not just play together. I think that it needs to be a strong symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I think it's the same. And yeah. And so are you prepared to sell this technology to other companies? Because I know, I mean, I was lucky enough to participate in some of your meetings, and you like fight with a lot of strength for your brands, for American Airlines brands. And I think this is very important, because if you don't do, who else is going to do? You know, you are number one in terms of education. So you have to, I mean, it has to come from you first.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that, like I said, that's been the struggle, is getting the company to appreciate the intellectual property that they have, the soft property they have. And so, yeah, that, I could have just sat back and let it rest, or I could do what I thought was right and advance it, which means I need to be pushing internally to get that understanding, that appreciation, so that I could expand it. And so that's a big part of it. And just working in marketing, it's working with the execs a lot of time, helping them understand the value of what's there. And it is a tremendous amount of value, as you've seen from what we tried to do. But what you're referring to also is that over that time period, if you look at American Airlines and the fact that it is a global company, it became difficult to constantly interact with all of my foreign counsel all the time. And so what I did was I created what I called a triumvirate. At that time, I had divided the world into 3 regions and put a firm in charge of each region. That's why I refer to it as the triumvirate, and would meet with them regularly. It made it easier for me to then educate them on where the company is going and what it's doing, and then have that trickle down to the local council and their geographic regions with it. And you were on that triumvirate for a lengthy period of time, and it was very good. So I do know that Goldman in this bond liked that concept of the triumvirate, because it does give continuity there. It gives continuity both ways. One of educating down, and downstream, and then both of having someone who can backstop me for everything that needs to be done. So
yeah, and also it's another proof that you have been very vigilant on protection of your trademarks, or I mean, one of these one assets that it's so important at the end of the day.
yes,
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
for the banks, so it's key in a way. So yeah, it's been a pleasure working with you, and thank you very much for this interview. Is there anything else you would like to add?
no, it's been great working with you. And I look forward to continuing to work with you. You guys have been fantastic. No, I don't have anything more to add. It's been a fun ride.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride. I agree. And I am really seeking to expand your ideas all over the world.
Good. Appreciate it.
We'll
Thank you.
see. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.